The co-creator of 2025's breakout friend slop game, Peak, shared some insight as to how they landed on the game's $8 price, and it's equal parts sensible and insane. Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only game news show brave enough to just be glad there are cheap games of any kind out there these days.
Yeah, we're hurting, but we need something simple, fun, pure, accessible, play with friends is perfect. But the whole story behind the development of Peak is really interesting. It's not just about the price, but the price is kind of the wackiest part.
Yeah, for sure. So Steven Totila's game file lays out the strategy as described by Peak co-creator Nick Kamen in an interview that occurred before the Game Awards last year.
Here's the background real quick. Peak launched in June 2025 for $5, which itself was a launch discount from the game's standard price of $8.
And then that price was based on 2024's content warning, which is naturally also $8, not $5.8.
Yeah. But as Kamen describes it, the $8 price point is chosen because it's mentally still just $5, and $5 isn't that much at all. There's a full quote that breaks it down. Bruce, why don't you take it away?
This really does make sense when you read it, but you have to read it a lot. Like, I read it like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, oh, I get it. I understand what he's saying. So here's what he said. In a player's mind, what does it mean to spend $5? Well, that's $5. But $6? That's still $5. $4, also kind of $5. $3 is now $2. And $2 is basically free. So we've got these tiers. So, $12, that's $10. But $13, well, that's $15. And we found that $8 is still $5. It doesn't become $10. $7.99, that's $5, right? So $8 going to $5 is the biggest differential we could find in pricing, so we found it very optimal.
I mean, it does seem like a lot when you're looking at it. Like, it was $8, but now it's $5. I gotta get that. Even though $3, gosh, these days you sneeze and you lose $3. So it's all just perceptive, right? Our lizard brains just fire off randomly when we see numbers. But still, 5, 8, no matter what, as long as it's under 10, that's undeniably a bargain for a game like Peak that can provide days and days worth of entertainment versus, I don't know, seeing a movie for $30 and it's over in 2 hours. Come on.
That's a good point. And also, Lawrence, it's interesting that you got a different definition of this than I did, because when he's saying $8, I'm thinking he's getting as close as or as far away from $5 as he can before making it the $10 limit. So $8 is as close to $5 as you can make by raising the price $3. So you make an extra $3 versus charging it for $5. Since you charged it for $8, it's like, this is a nightmare to explain. But there are 2 tiers. What he's saying, there's the $5 tier and the $10 tier, and then when you go up to 9 and 10, that's $10, obviously, right? But then if it's 8, 7, 6, 5, those are all $5.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just thinking about it from terms of the launch discount and the differential there. Right. But you're right. Yeah. It is more than 50% more revenue for perceptively the same price. Clever stuff.
Exactly. All right. So the full interview with Kamen goes into much more depth about Peak's development, right, Lawrence?
Yeah. This stuff is I find this fascinating. It's just the process that leads to a game like Peak. So the price isn't the only pivot that Peak represented for the developer's aggro crab. Yeah,
Kamen goes on to describe how the studio's 2 previous games, Going Under and Another Crab's Treasure, they did well enough, but the high-pressure 3-year development cycle on Another Crab's Treasure left the team burned out.
Yeah, and then it was a conversation with the content warning developers Landfall at the Game Developers Conference in 2024 that sort of changed Kamen's entire perspective. He learned that Landfall, the Swedish developers Landfall, they only spent a month and change developing content warning, and they did that by shipping a development team to South Korea and secluding them there where they couldn't be distracted to just grind away on the game for a whole month and get it out.
Well, there you go. Kamen asked if he could tag along next time, and they said yes.
So in February 2025, Kamen and 2 other developers from Aggro Crab joined 4 developers from Landfall in an Airbnb in South Korea.
After a trip to IKEA to pick up office furniture, they set to work on Peak, and by the end of the first week, they already had the skeleton of the game up and running.
Yeah, it's that fast. I guess that's the core of a video game, the heartbeat right there. It doesn't take long to get it off the ground. Another amusing anecdote that was in the interview is apparently there was an idea that the Aggro Crab developers and the Landfall developers would each ship a different version of Peak like a Pokemon Red and Blue situation, and each would have a different little spin on it. But I think they decided that would be a little too complicated for what is ultimately a pretty small scope indie game. They decided to keep it simple, which I think, everything about, the indie friend slop scene ought to be simple. Simple concept, small price, really tight gameplay loop, and they nailed it.
So Nick Kamen credits the 2020 meme of a smug Sonic the Hedgehog saying, quote, "I want shorter games with worse graphics, and I'm not kidding," as inspiration for changing his studio's development process. And it worked.
It worked, yeah. We're here. We're getting the cheaper games with worse graphics, but I think a lot of people are finding them more fun than a lot of the overblown, overproduced games. The timing of this, I find a little... there's some serendipity about the timing here, given that Anthem just shut down. And I think after 2019 is when you started to see games in general start to just sort of, pun partially intended here, peak out. Too much money, too much overproduction, and no focus on the core of the game. They're not even fun from a second-to-second basis. Then you layer on all this stuff, world crafting, graphics, music, score, developers that are trying to make a name for themselves, and speaking of how this is the next revolution in storytelling or whatever. Also, I'm off the rails here, but Mark Dara, the old executive producer from BioWare, just put up a 3.5-hour retrospective about Anthem. Super fascinating to hear it from a first party like that. But yeah, along the way, you can see how it just gets so lost in the sauce. So it makes sense that Peak came from some developers that locked themselves into a dark room and didn't come out until they had the bare minimum, the minimum viable product. You list it for the cheapest possible price, and it just takes off like wildfire. It's great.
This is why Lawrence and I love PC gaming. And, to a lesser extent, Steam. I think Steam, and there's Epic Games and GOG and all the other launchers on PC. But that's the best part of PC is that you can find these games for free for $2, $5, $8, and you will play them 30, 40, 50, 60 hours, sometimes 100 hours. Vampire Survivors, I must have 100 hours in, and that was $5, right? Like it was like, so it's so awesome to get hooked on a game like that and realize that you only spent $5 and you had a blast for 30 hours. That's an amazing deal versus like what Lawrence said when you go to see Avatar for $25. It's a 3.5-hour movie, but that's it, right? That's all you got.
Well, you carry so much more with you, Bruce. You carry the heart of Awa inside after you're seen by the true warrior spirit of the planet.
Right.
Hashtag see it 5 times. Rocco Bate is starting that hashtag, so we're all going to go see Avatar 3 5 times. I got 4 more to go.
That's a lot of time.
I got to find time for it. My schedule's getting packed. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up PC because, kind of through this whole process, the rise of these like indie hits on PC, I was hoping that we were driving towards a true, I think we're already kind of in a PC renaissance. I was hoping it would be like a multi-generational PC renaissance, that we'd have Gen Z, Gen Alpha getting on PC to play these really cheap connective games instead of being locked in the Roblox or the Fortnite ecosystem. And it was about to happen, but now AI is snapping up all the hardware so nobody can buy anything, which sucks. But I have to use this moment to shout out that and also speaking of price perception, the Xbox ROG Ally keeps going on sale. Right now it's $500 or $499. It was even $450 last holiday. But please, if you're looking to get into PC and you're worried about rising prices, jump on that right now, because that's an incredible deal for the performance you get. It can play everything out there right now, and we'll be able to do so, I think, for the next few years. And I think it stacks up incredibly well value-wise versus a $450 Switch 2 or even a $550 Steam Deck, which is the cheapest version you can get these days. So just doing my plug, trying to espouse the PC platform in whatever form it takes, in the cheapest possible form it takes. But the games are not getting cheaper, at least on the high end. We had Mario Kart hit $80, and I think, like everybody else, was worried that once Nintendo broke that everybody else would follow suit. Some people tried. Xbox tried to sell Outer Worlds 2 for $80. They ended up rolling that back, thank God. But we got GTA 6 coming up. I think if any game can get away with pushing any price barrier they want, it's going to be them. And once they do it, everyone else will too, which is scary. So I don't know. What do you make of all this, Bruce? Where do you see this headed?
It's just really, it's just scary is the right word. And it's really disappointing. And it's sad for me to see these AAA games that I love. Unapologetically, I love AAA games. I think they're a blast. I love getting in and getting to play Star Wars Outlaws. It feels, or like, Assassin's Creed or Anthem even, because it's hilarious. that we get so many developers that have handcrafted so much cool stuff. Whether or not it's fun, that's subjective. But we get to see what they've made for us and pay this $70 price tag or whatever, $60 it used to be. And now we're going up to 70 and 80. And even I don't want to do that. I'm at now a point where I'm like, I don't want to spend $80. Like GTA 6 is about maybe the only game I'm going to spend $80 on that I want to, right? Like the rest of them, I'm going to be like, you spend $80 on Outer Worlds 2? No, thank you. Like I'll never do that. And so I want to go back to the Steam prices and all the other prices that we've seen that are lower. If you go to Steam right now, you look at the top sellers. The top seller is Quarantine Zone, which is $18. You have to scroll down this list, the top sellers on Steam right now. You have to get down to, let's see here, Baldur's Gate 3, I think, is the very first one. And that's a $60 game, not a $70 game. But the rest of them, they're all under the $70 price tag. The first $70 game I can find, there's Elden Ring for $60 at number 30 of the top sellers. I mean, so Battlefield 6 at number 40 is $70. And the rest of them, that is telling the developers and the publishers that we need to price those games lower. We need to price the games at the Arc Raiders and the Helldivers price point of the $30 to $40 price range for even those AAA games. I would consider Helldivers 2 a AAA game at a $40 price tag. That's where we need to land. And I think Steam is doing a fantastic job of showing that to developers and publishers. I hope that they are listening because if they're asking me to spend $80 on another, game that's like an Outer Worlds 2, I ain't gonna do it. Like that's just not. I'll look. By the way, just so you know, me personally, I would never do it. For my work, I will buy them and stream them, or whatever. But that's my job, right? If this were me personally, I would never spend $80 on a game like that.
Yeah, and I think the industry has woken up to that the like trying to match price with production value is kind of topped out for a lot of people. That layering on increased production value did not result in any perception of increased value, so people are not willing to pay more and more for it. I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is an interesting case study of a game that I thought in terms of content and production over-delivered in every possible way, but people just kind of weren't there for it. The stuff you can cram on a disc doesn't necessarily guarantee you a sale anymore. Whereas I feel like all throughout the 2010s, as it was ramping up and up and up, it used to. Nowadays, you have to over deliver. Things like Baldur's Gate 3, massive over delivery, but it also had a different kind of rollout and a different business backing. And in a way, it does kind of mirror some of these indie games that try to put out the minimum thing to start getting revenue rolling in, and then they can scale their response afterwards. If Peak is a hit, okay, we can keep working on Peak. If it's not, we got to move on to the next idea. What worries me is I think the business reality we're heading towards, a lot of companies are finding, I think that AI is going to bridge that gap. That they'll be able to make a game for $40 that has the perceptive production value of a $70 game, but they only had to use, 2/3, half the staff for 2/3 or half the time to get that product to market. Now, what happens when we're swimming in $40 games that I'll play like AAA games? I don't know. Then it's only going to drive up competition. And ideally, if we're as optimistic as we can be, it'll result in the most artistically vibrant game standing out. Things like Expedition 33 or Arc Raiders, which has a unique tone and a unique artistry behind it that makes it stand out against other games, maybe even like Marathon, that didn't seem too distinct when they first debuted. Which, I haven't played Marathon yet, not slagging on it. Just kind of looking at how people perceive things and the way the market tends to respond.
There's one more game this year that everybody's going to pay $80 for, and we'll find out if they're going to charge $80 for it. It's Marvel's Wolverine. Wolverine is going to be this game that's going to push that $80 price tag. And that is a game that I might be willing to pay $80 for, because I think that they really will make Insomniac is known for making an amazing game. They spent, what was it, $320 million on Spider-Man 2, right? And I think most people were satisfied, even though that was a 25-hour game, 30-hour game. They were satisfied for the price that they paid on that. So we'll see about Wolverine, but I would imagine that Wolverine's going to be $80.
Yeah, probably. Sony was pretty clear that they weren't unhappy with Spider-Man 2, but I think for PlayStation Studios, Spider-Man 2 was far more expensive than its return yielded. They even kind of cited Spider-Man 2 as like, okay, that's our like, we went too high on that one. So I do think that Wolverine's production is probably going to be more constrained. We may not get the bevy of mini games. We may not be able to shoot hoops as Wolverine or something like that. I'm a mini game lover, and yeah, Spider-Man 2 might be one of the most overproduced games I've ever played. Maybe next to Metal Gear Solid 4. But it was a marvel, pun intended. And yeah, I'm deathly curious to see where Wolverine hits. I think it'll have impressive production values. That's just kind of what it's what Insomniac does. But I don't think it'll be quite as bananas as Spider-Man 2. I think PlayStation saw that, spending 3 times the money on Spider-Man 2 didn't yield 3 times the sales, didn't move 3 times the PlayStations. So now they know where the sweet spot is. Similarly, I think on the other end of the scale, develop like Aggro Crab and Landfall, they're finding where the sweet spot is for their business model too. So everyone's kind of finding a new path to success in this new realm. The one thing is, I just want more players on board. I want more players in the system and not stuck in Roblox.
All right, let's move on to the Inside Games obituaries, which we never ever do, but there's a few. Meta closed Twisted Pixel and Sanzaru Games on Monday.
Yeah, this is sad, especially for folks that were, speaking of indie darlings, Twisted Pixel produced a string of very charming indie hits in the 2000s, like Splosion Man and Comic Jumper and the Gunstringer. Maybe not the Gunstringer, that was a Kinect game, but it still had a really fun concept behind it, so rest in peace, Twisted Pixel. Man, that's just what happens when you get acquired by Meta. I feel like the Reaper starts dogging you the second you take Facebook money. So, but they made some great games along the way. So rest in peace. It's kind of weird because I remember us covering Twisted Pixel games back at Machinima, and somehow we're still on our feet talking about video games. So it's humbling it's humbling and very sad to outlast some of these studios that have contributed a lot of great memories. So we remember you fondly. And I guess we just have to thank you, the viewer, whoever's listening to this right now, for continuing to watch our coverage. That's the reason we're still here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we owe an extra beefy thank you to the folks that actually support us directly via Patreon with their hard-earned cash. So thank you very, very much for doing that. We've been doing this Patreon now for about 4 years. Almost. Is this 5 now? Are we going on 5 years now, Lawrence? My gosh, it's almost 5 years. So thank you very much, Sherwin Sanchez, Talia Monochrome, Chilled Monkey Brain Buck, and Jared Watkins for getting our back along the way. We would not have been able to do it as long if it weren't for you.